Edo, Japan. A young swordsman named Renji collapsed mid-strike during a sparring match, sword raised, opponent open in front of him, and simply had nothing left. His teacher, Master Yagyu Munenori, watched from the edge of the dojo without expression. Renji lost the match. Not because he lacked skill, because his body had run out of energy, his mind had been leaking for weeks. Across Japan, Munenori himself had fought duel after duel, some to the death, and never once shown exhaustion. Not because he trained less, because he understood something Renji hadn't learned yet. Here's what nobody tells you. Your exhaustion doesn't come from what you do. It comes from why you do it. The question isn't how to rest more. The question is, are you walking a straight path or are you running in circles, draining your spirit with every step spent performing instead of simply moving? Chapter 1. The Collapse. Renji was 22 when he arrived at Munenori's dojo, already a competent swordsman, already praised by his previous instructors for his form, his discipline, his effort. But within months, he was exhausted in a way he'd never experienced. Not physical tiredness, he could handle that. This was heavier, a weight in his chest, no amount of sleep relieved. He'd wake up tired, train tired, eat tired, sleep tired. After his third consecutive loss to a student with objectively worse technique, Renji sat outside the dojo in the evening, staring at his hands. Munenori approached without announcing himself, the way he always did. "Tell me why you came here, to become a great swordsman. Why?" Renji paused. Nobody had asked that before. To bring honor to my family, to prove myself, to be recognized as skilled. Munenori's voice was gentle but firm. "You came here to prove something, to gain approval, to be seen. That," he continued, "is why you're exhausted. You're not training to master yourself. You're performing for an audience that isn't even watching." The words hit like a physical blow. Munenori picked up a small stone, placed it in Renji's palm. Every time you train for approval, you add a stone. Every time you compare yourself, another stone. Every time you overthink, hesitate, try to impress, stone, stone, stone. He placed imaginary stones in Renji's hands until the weight became real in his mind. You're not tired from training. You're tired from carrying stones that serve no purpose. That night, Renji couldn't sleep. He realized he'd been exhausted his entire life, not just the past few months. Every effort to be the best student, every duel fought to be admired, he'd never done anything simply because it was his path. Chapter 2. The Principle. Utsuranu Kokoro, the mind that carries nothing. The next morning, Munenori took Renji to the edge of a shallow stream behind the dojo. He picked up a flat stone and skipped it across the surface, 3 clean bounces before it vanished. Watch the stone. It touches the water and leaves before the water can pull it under. That is how an unburdened spirit moves through a moment. It touches and it leaves, carrying nothing extra with it. Renji watched the ripples fade. "Master, but what if I need to prepare more, think more, carry more so I'm not caught unready?" Munenori threw a second stone, weighted this time with mud packed around it. It sank immediately. "See? Everything extra you carry, every worry, every comparison, drags you under faster, not slower. This is the first principle. Remove everything of no use." They walked back toward the dojo. Munenori explained Utsuranu Kokoro, the mind that does not linger under weight it never needed to pick up. In your daily life outside this dojo, Renji, you have done this 1,000 times. Carrying the opinion of a stranger for a week. Carrying the memory of a loss long after the lesson was learned. Carrying the fear of what others will think into every single action. Renji felt exposed because each example was true. Munenori's voice took on a quality that seemed to reach past the moment they were standing in. This principle is not only for swordsmen. Throughout history, warriors have discovered that energy doesn't come from effort. It comes from alignment. That exhaustion comes from carrying weight that serves no purpose. Today, in places far from this mountain, others will face the same burden you face now, spirit crushed under stones they don't need to carry. Those who learn to remove those stones find what they've actually been searching for. Not more strength, but the willingness to walk without the weight. This is the discipline we still practice today. Subscribe to Viking Mindset and walk this path with us, because the moment you stop carrying stones is the moment your energy stops leaking. Munenori gestured for Renji to rise. Now, we begin removing your stones, one at a time. Chapter 3. The Test. Week 1. Munenori gave Renji a single instruction. When you act, act without carrying the weight of how it will be judged. Renji failed constantly at first. In sparring, he'd feel the old instinct to check how he looked, to carry the weight of the watching students, and by the time he moved, the energy for the strike itself was already spent on the worrying. By day 4, something shifted. He stopped carrying the judgment into the action. He simply moved and let the strike itself be the only thing that mattered. He lost more matches that week than he had in months. Munenori was unconcerned. Losing without the weight teaches your body what lightness feels like. Winning while carrying stones teaches you nothing except how to carry more of them. Week 2. Munenori introduced blindfolded response drills, where Renji had to react to sound and pressure alone, with no way to see and therefore no way to worry about being watched. You cannot carry the weight of an audience you cannot see. This forces the unburdened mind. Renji's reactions, stripped of the weight of self-consciousness, came faster and drained him less than he believed possible. Week 3. The comparison trap emerged. Against students he considered beneath him, he moved freely, energized. Against students he respected, exhaustion crept back within minutes. Dressed up as focus but functioning exactly like the old weight. Munenori named it immediately. You are not tired because he is skilled. You are tired because you're carrying the stone of what losing to him will mean about you. That is not focus. That is vanity. And vanity is heavier than any stone I have handed you. By week 4, Renji woke up light, not because the training had gotten easier, but because he was no longer spending half his energy carrying stones before he'd even picked up his sword. Chapter 4. Warrior Psychology. Why carried weight exhausts you faster than effort ever could. Munenori gathered his senior students, Renji seated at the front, his mind clearer than it had been in years. Today I will explain why the swordsman who carries nothing outlasts the swordsman who is stronger but weighted down. Your body has limited physical energy, but your spirit's energy is different. It renews when unburdened, depletes when carrying stones that serve no purpose. When your actions align with your path instead of with the approval of others, energy flows freely. When they don't, when you're fighting to be seen rather than fighting to be present, that misalignment drains you faster than any duel ever could, he continued. There is a difference between focused preparation and carried weight. Preparation happens before the moment, sharpening the blade, studying the terrain. Carried weight happens inside the moment, long after preparation should be finished, and it does nothing but drain the energy the moment actually requires. I have fought men stronger than myself and outlasted them completely, not because my body had more to give, but because their spirit was carrying stones mine had already set down. They were not tired from fighting me. They were tired from fighting the weight of their own comparisons first. This applies to farmers, to merchants, to any person carrying the stone of what others will think into every decision they make. The exhaustion people carry for years, decades even, is rarely exhaustion from effort honestly given. It is exhaustion from weight never set down. Utsuranu Kokoro is the refusal to let approval-seeking disguise itself as ambition for so long that it hollows out the very energy your path requires. Chapter 5. The First Transformation. The Duel That Ended Differently. Month 4. Munenori announced a match between Renji and Isamu, the dojo's strongest student, a fighter who overwhelmed opponents through relentless aggression, never once slowing, never once appearing to tire. The old Renji would have spent the whole night carrying the stone of Isamu's reputation, dreading it. The new Renji simply slept, then trained his body that morning and walked into the match carrying nothing but presence. The match began. Isamu attacked immediately, ferociously, the way he always did. Renji did not meet force with force, and he did not carry the weight of trying to look impressive while defending. He simply responded to what was actually happening, moment to moment, nothing extra added. 3 minutes in, something unprecedented occurred. Isamu began showing signs of exhaustion, his breathing labored, his movements less crisp. Renji, fresh, energized, like he'd just begun. The watching students murmured. This had never happened. 5 minutes. Isamu's frustration grew, technically landing more strikes, but looking drained doing it. Renji looked calm. 7 minutes. Isamu stopped, breathing hard. I need rest. Renji stood ready, barely winded. Later, Isamu approached him, confused. How are you not tired? I'm the stronger fighter, but I'm exhausted, Renji answered honestly. You fought carrying the weight of staying dominant. I fought carrying nothing at all. That evening, Munenori explained to the dojo. What you witnessed today is the principle every true warrior eventually learns. Energy doesn't come from physical strength. It comes from what you refuse to carry. Chapter 6, Deep Training Arc, The Mountain Temple, Month 6. Munenori sent Renji to Enkoji Temple, 40 miles into the mountains, where the monks practiced a discipline older than swordsmanship itself. Master Yagyu says you are learning to carry nothing. Good. Here you will learn why the weight builds in the first place. The temple schedule left no room for drift. Pre-dawn rising, physical labor, silent meals, hours of seated stillness, no variation every day for 90 days. The first week was hell. Not physically, Renji could handle hard work, but the complete absence of anything to perform for, anyone to impress, anything to prove. He realized he'd been addicted to being watched, and that addiction had been draining him for years. Week 3, during manual labor, hauling stone for a temple wall, his mind wandered toward resentment, wishing he were somewhere more meaningful. The head monk noticed instantly. That resentment is a stone too. You're carrying the weight of wishing you were elsewhere. That costs the same energy as carrying the weight of an audience. Presence has no exceptions for tasks you find beneath you. Renji practiced full presence in the labor itself and slowly felt the difference. The exhaustion wasn't from the work, it was from the resentment stacked on top of it. Month 8, during a long seated meditation, Renji's mind, usually crowded, emptied unexpectedly. And in that emptiness, something clarified itself that felt larger than his own situation. This discipline was never only about swords. It was about the countless ordinary moments where a person carries weight they never needed to pick up, the opinion of someone who won't remember saying it, the comparison to someone whose path was never his own, the performance for an audience that was never actually watching. Across every life, in every era, this same weight builds the same way, quietly, stone by stone, until people call the resulting exhaustion normal and stop questioning where it came from. Those who learn to set the stones down as quickly as they're handed find something that looks like more energy but is actually just less leaking. This is the practice we keep alive every week. Subscribe to Viking Mindset and train this discipline alongside people who are done carrying weight that was never theirs to carry. By month 9, Renji returned to the dojo changed, moving lighter, sleeping deeper, training longer without the old fatigue catching up to him by midday. Chapter 7. The Final Test. A Ronin had been terrorizing local villages, skilled and dangerous, and multiple samurai had already challenged him and lost, some fatally. The magistrate requested Munenori's help. Munenori chose Renji. That night, Renji didn't lie awake carrying the weight of what if I lose? What if I die? What if I'm not enough? He simply prepared, slept, and let the outcome be whatever it would be. The next day, village square. The Ronin, a man named Nakamura, waited, laughing at how young Renji looked. You'll die young. Renji stayed silent, centered, carrying nothing into the fight but the fight itself. It began. Nakamura attacked with vicious intent, expecting to overwhelm through sheer relentless pressure the way he always had. But as the fight progressed, Nakamura grew tired, frustrated, his breathing labored, his strikes losing precision. Renji, still fresh, calm, moved like he'd just started. This confused Nakamura, used to burying opponents under exhausting pressure. But Renji carried none of the weight Nakamura was used to seeing in an opponent's eyes. No fear, no desperation, no performance. After 10 minutes, an eternity in combat, Nakamura was gasping, his movements sloppy. Renji saw the opening and disarmed him completely. The Ronin fell to his knees, defeated but alive. "How?" Nakamura gasped. "Are you not exhausted?" Renji sheathed his sword. "Because I wasn't carrying anything into this fight except the fight itself. You were carrying the weight of needing to win. Winning drains energy. Presence creates it." The magistrate thanked Renji. Villagers celebrated. But Renji walked away quietly, carrying no need for the celebration either. Ending. The cycle continues. Years later, Renji, now a master himself, watched a young student collapse mid-strike in exactly the way he once had. Exhausted, opening in front of him, nothing left. After the match, the student sat outside the dojo exactly where Renji once sat, staring at his own hands. Renji sat beside him. "Tell me why you came here," the student answered honestly, the way Renji once had. "To prove myself, to be recognized." Renji nodded, recognizing every word. "And in carrying that, you've been exhausting yourself long before you ever draw your sword." The student looked up, surprised to be understood so completely. Renji picked up a small stone, placed it in the student's palm. "Every time you train for approval, you carry this. Every time you compare yourself, another stone. Every time you perform instead of simply act, stone, stone, stone." Miyamoto Musashi fought 60 duels to the death, trained every day, created art, wrote philosophy and never burned out, because he carried no stones. Renji stood, walked toward the training hall. "Come, I'll teach you what Master Yagyu taught me, what the Mountain Temple taught me, what warriors across all time have discovered, that energy doesn't come from rest, it comes from alignment. When your actions, your beliefs, and your path all point the same direction, when you remove everything of no use, energy becomes infinite." This teaching continues today across all time. At Viking Mindset, we keep this warrior discipline alive, not as history, but as practice. Every week, the ancient alignment methods. Every week, the stone removal practices. Every week, the path to energy that doesn't depend on circumstances. If you feel exhausted, if you recognize yourself crushed under invisible weight, subscribe to Viking Mindset and walk with us. Because the secret isn't hidden in scrolls, it's in the choice to set the stones down and never pick them back up. The student asked, "Master, where do I begin?" Renji handed him a broom. "By removing what's of no use. Starting with the idea that you need to prove anything at all. You have everything required, you just carry too much that isn't. Remove stones. Walk light. Never tire again."